At some point, you stop mid-explanation, not because you don't have the words, but because you suddenly realize how tired you are of using them. So you smile. You say, "It's fine," and you move on. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. And the strange part is, it doesn't feel like losing your voice. It feels like choosing where your energy goes. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself, or maybe in someone close to you. Someone who used to explain everything, what they meant, what they felt, why they did what they did. And now, they don't correct misunderstandings. They don't clarify every detail. They let things sit unfinished. From the outside, people assume this means confidence, or coldness, or ego. But the psychology behind it is much quieter and much deeper. There isn't just one kind of person who stops explaining themselves. There are several, and the reason matters. First, there are people who stopped explaining because experience taught them it doesn't work. Think about someone who used to over-explain. They clarified their tone. They added context. They softened their words so no one would misread them. "I didn't mean it like that. Let me explain what I was trying to say. That came out wrong. What I meant was..." They weren't confused. They were careful. But after enough conversations where they were still misunderstood, something shifted. Not suddenly. Slowly. The brain made a quiet decision. If clarity doesn't lead to understanding, why keep spending energy on it? So they stopped explaining. Not because they don't care, but because they cared for too long. If this is you, you probably still think deeply. You just don't translate every thought anymore. You've learned that misunderstanding isn't always about communication. It's often about whether the other person wants to understand. Then there's another type. People who stop explaining themselves because they no longer seek permission. At some point, they realize something uncomfortable. A lot of explaining is actually disguised approval seeking. Is this okay? Do you get why I'm doing this? Does this make sense to you? Once that need fades, explanations fade too. These people aren't reckless. They're internally aligned. They've learned to sit with disagreement without needing to fix it. They don't feel the urge to defend their choices to people who aren't living their life. From the outside, this can look like confidence, or distance, or mystery. But internally, it's about autonomy. If this resonates, you might notice that you explain less, but feel steadier. You're okay being misunderstood by people who don't really see you anyway. Then there's a quieter, heavier reason. Some people stop explaining themselves because explaining feels emotionally unsafe. They explained their feelings once, and were told they were too sensitive. They explained their boundaries, and were made to feel selfish. They explained their needs, and nothing changed. So the nervous system adapted. Explaining became associated with exposure, with vulnerability that wasn't protected. Over time, silence felt safer. If this is you, you probably still feel deeply. You just share selectively. You give short answers. You keep things vague. Not to be distant, but to stay regulated. This isn't avoidance. It's memory. Your body remembers what happened the last time you explained yourself fully. Another type is often misunderstood. People who stop explaining themselves because they've learned that explanation is a form of intimacy. When you explain, you're letting someone into your inner process. Your reasoning, your emotions, your meaning. Not everyone handles that access with care. So they became selective. They explain deeply to a few people. They stay surface level with most. Not because they're closed off, but because they're intentional. If this feels like you, you're not quiet. You're private. And there's a difference. But here's the twist most people miss. Sometimes people stop explaining themselves not because they've healed, but because they're tired. Tired of translating themselves. Tired of defending their tone. Tired of correcting assumptions. On the outside, it looks calm. Inside, it's exhaustion. If this resonates, it's worth asking gently, are you choosing silence or retreating into it? There's no judgment in that question, just awareness. Because stopping explanations can be a sign of growth, or a sign of emotional burnout. The behavior looks the same. The reason underneath is completely different. So if you've noticed yourself explaining less lately, ask yourself, Did I stop because I trust myself more? Because I trust others less? Because I'm protecting something tender? Or because I'm simply done spending energy where it doesn't return? None of these answers are wrong. They're just information. And maybe the real skill isn't explaining or not explaining, but knowing when each one matters. So which version felt most like you? And when was the last time you stopped mid-sentence and chose silence instead? If this kind of quiet psychology resonates with you, if it feels like someone is putting words to experiences you've never fully named, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel is for. Sometimes, the most meaningful insights don't come from explaining yourself. They come from finally recognizing why you stopped.